Well, hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to be talking about astrology tonight. And the most important thing that's coming up in astrology right now is the solar eclipse, which is taking place on February 17th. So I'm going to jump right in talking about the eclipse. In a few minutes, I'll put up on the screen, I'll put up the chart so you can be looking at it. I don't know how much it'll mean to some of you, but some of you will find it very, very interesting. Um, this solar eclipse is taking place at almost the very end of Aquarius. Not quite. It's at 28 degrees 50 minutes. So it's just 10 degrees shy of that 29th degree. And the 29th degree of most signs is very, very important. 29 is the anaretic degree, and it brings out the true essence of the sign. So the 0 degree of the sign is the true essence, and the 29th degree of a sign is the true essence. And this eclipse is major. This is going to affect every one of you, and it's really going to affect the planet. I'll show you a little bit later on in the video where on the planet this eclipse is really going to make major impact, and you'll be surprised at the places that it's going to create an impact. But everybody is going to be impacted by this. And if you've noticed lately, probably since Christmas time, the energy is just different. It's just really, really different. Now, part of that was the big pileup of planets that went through Capricorn, and now they're in Aquarius and some in Pisces. And eventually they're all going to toddle on into Aries, which is the new beginning. And the 2026 year is a new beginning year. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this all evolves, how it affects our country and the other countries across the world, and how it affects you individually. So the biggest thing that I can say about this eclipse is that it is saying to all of us, we have arrived. This is an Aquarius eclipse. Aquarius is the sign of the person who does their own thing almost at all times. They're rebellious, they can be disruptive, and they're the ones who change things up in order to make room for something better, not just something new, but something better. That's the goal of Aquarius. It's a humanitarian sign, it's a visionary sign, it's a sign that really thinks and can perceive and visualize what's going on for the masses. And for most Aquarians, they're thinking about the good of humanity and how they can improve things for humanity or the masses. Now, all new moons bring the sun and the moon together. That's the definition of a new moon, when the sun and the moon are right together. But this means, with this particular new moon, that both the sun and the moon are in one sign, that sign being Aquarius. So Aquarius is a truth teller. Now, the sun, which represents our heart, and the moon, which represents our soul, will express themselves through this unconventional lens of Aquarius. Truth will become so important. You will need to face the truth about yourself. For many, this will mean you can acknowledge what's really good in your life and what's maybe not working so well in your life, and what you're willing to let go of or what you need to let go of. And once you've made that decision, you won't be asking permission of anyone for doing it. You're just going to do it. Something important to remember too about this eclipse cycles are governed by the signs that the nodes of the moon are in. Now, moon nodes are one of those nerdy things about astrology that most people really don't understand and don't really care about. But it is important because this is what causes us to see an eclipse and to experience an eclipse. The nodes are a point in the orbit of the sun as it goes around the Earth, where it crosses the orbit of the Earth going around the sun. So you've got the Earth going around like this, right? And then you've got the moon just maybe a couple degrees below that going around just the Earth. And when those paths cross, the ancients called it a knot or a node. And they noticed that when the new moon or full moon coincided very close to that node or knot, things happened differently. Kings and queens were born. Leaders died. Important people came about, were born. So not just kings and queens, but just really, really important people were born on eclipses. And right now, a couple of the people living in our through this moment of history with us have been born on eclipses. I'm sure there's a lot more than the ones I'm going to mention, but Donald Trump, for example, was born on an eclipse. Prince William, who will be the future King of England, and his wife, Kate, are both born on eclipses. His father, King Charles, not born on an eclipse. Close, but not quite. So the eclipse thing really has some merit. And if you have ever lived through an eclipse and that fell at a degree very close to some other important planets in your chart, like your sun or your moon or your rising sign, then you noticed that eclipse. So let's go back to the nodes. So the nodes actually travel backwards through the signs because it doesn't matter why, but they do. So we are experiencing the end of the cycle where the nodes are going through the signs Virgo and Pisces. And yet the eclipse, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, is in the sign Aquarius, which is close to Pisces, but it's not Pisces. So this is what we call an out of sign eclipse. And this means that that energy in your chart that pertains to Virgo and Pisces is wrapping up, is allowing you to kind of let go of those area of energies that's going towards those areas of your life now, and you're getting ready to look towards things in your life that pertain to the next pair of eclipse signs, which is going to be Aquarius and Leo. See, it goes backwards. So instead of going from Pisces to Aries, it's going to go from Pisces backward to Aquarius, and the other one is going to go from Virgo backwards to Leo. So what we're seeing with this eclipse is the beginning of the cycle. And eclipses often do this. They wobble through the signs that the nodes are in until they finally land on the right one. You remember the last couple of years where Pluto kept going, almost in Aquarius, then it'd go back to Capricorn, and it was just wobbling through that and couldn't quite get through there. That's a little bit like what the nodes are doing now. They're almost going into the next set of signs, but not quite. And so this gives us a chance to kind of get used to that energy and to really understand and grasp what it is that we need to move on to and what it is that we need to let go of. Now, by July, we will have an eclipse that is utilizing the nodes in the signs of Leo and Aquarius. So what happens now in this eclipse is kind of like the prelude to what is really going to be coming in July. It doesn't mean that it won't start until July. It starts now. You are starting with it now. So it's either mental or spiritual or maybe physical preparation that you're doing for this, but you'll know that you're moving on to something new by July. And in July, it'll really be full force. Okay, so I'm taking this stuff a little bit out of order. I'm going to put the chart for the eclipse up right now. I think that's this one. Yeah, let me just double check this. Yes, this is right. Okay, let me go back to the way I was looking at this stuff. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Sorry, technical difficulties here. Ah, sorry. Okay, there we go. All right. So we also have the energies of the planets that are traveling alongside all of these planets in the eclipse. The first set of planets that I just want to mention are that the sun and the moon, which are up here, the circle with the dot and the crescent moon here, they are traveling with Mars, and this is Vesta, and Pluto. Now, these are big planets. Vesta is an asteroid that really represents the state, the hearth of the home, which in this case we're looking at, our country, right? And so that's the heart or the state or the government of our country, traveling along with our heart and soul, our energy, which is Mars, and then Pluto pulling up the rear. And Pluto is our power. So we are getting all of this stuff ready now so that by July, our power will be ready to lock in place. We also have Saturn, Neptune, and Chiron in Aries. So right up here we have Saturn, Neptune, Chiron, and then we have Ceres up here. Ceres has to do with our people, the way we feed people, the way we nourish people, the way we take care of people. Chiron has to do with our understanding of trauma, our understanding of how to heal from trauma and how to relieve ourselves of the pain of trauma. Saturn has to do with our government, our laws, our rules, our boundaries, the boundaries of our country and other countries. And Neptune has to do more with spirituality and a more higher way of looking at things, a more visionary in terms of what's the overarching moral arc that we are following. So it's also boundaryless. So we have Neptune and Saturn, which have been traveling together and conjuncting off and on since last year. And this is, I feel, really going to change the way our country goes forward in relationship to the rest of the countries in the world or on the planet. Because you've got Neptune, who's boundaryless, and Saturn, who represents boundaries and laws. So these are definitely up for grabs. Plus, you have Pluto in Aquarius, which is the greater good of humanity, the looking at humanity. And Pluto is power. So there's going to be a lot of shifts in power in the world, and this eclipse is going to be a big part of illuminating that. Eclipses very often illuminate things just like moons do. So along with Chiron and Ceres, we're going to have big changes. I see Ceres having to do with food and food, the food industry, food stores, crops, farming, and Chiron has to do with the trauma that our country has been through and that we're still going through. And how do we heal that? How do we nourish that and heal that? So that's another big theme in this eclipse. Then we have Venus, Mercury, and the North Node all in Pisces. So here we have Venus, Mercury, the North Node, and we also have Pallas Athena. Now, Pallas Athena has to do with knowledge and patterns. So Pallas Athena is sometimes attributed to war strategies, but I like to think of her as the Rubik's Cube master. She's the one who can twist things around and get the patterns to fall into place or recognize the patterns that are already there and bring that to light and illuminate that for people. Venus, of course, represents women and children and nurturing and money and luxuries and indulgence. Mercury is our communications and ideas, thoughts. It's also working with your hands. And then the North Node is our mission. It's where are we going? What are we trying to do? So all of these things are in this very, very caring, compassionate sign of Pisces in this solar eclipse. All right. Now, all three of the Pisces, well, four of the Pisces bodies are trining this planet down here. This is Jupiter exalted in the sign of Cancer. This is luck. This is benevolence. This is exaggeration. This is expansion. And we also have the part of fortune here, but that's just more Venus energy or more Jupiter energy. Actually, it's very lucky. So with all of these things getting triggered off of this beautiful energy from Jupiter, I think all of these things are going to improve. I think things for women are going to improve and children. I think things for our strategy, meaning protection and how we go about defending ourselves, our ideas about minds and communication. And Mercury can also represent young children and the education of young children. And so I think all of those things are going to benefit from this very exalted Jupiter in Cancer. So I think that's really good. This eclipse is going to just spark all of those energies, I feel, to their highest good. Okay, now Uranus, there is one bad boy in this eclipse, and that's going to be Uranus. Uranus is here towards the end of Taurus, and it's at 27 and change of Taurus. So it's going to be almost perfectly squared with the sun and the moon in Aquarius. Now, this can be good, or this could be looked at as very challenging or almost bad. This can mean that there will be some major fireworks, even upsets, and you'll have to look at the degrees in your chart. If you have degrees that are at the late degrees of the fixed signs, which are Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, and Leo, then this is going to hit you hard because those signs all square each other. That's what happens when they're all the same element or mode. And in this eclipse, like I said, it's a triggering action. It's a triggering event for what's going on with the planets. However, Uranus in Taurus has to do with banking and money and the earth and also women and the voices of those women. So having Uranus there squaring the sun, which represents the leader, and the moon, which represents the people, means that there will be people talking about these issues. They'll also be talking about, food supplies and things, but I think talking about women is going to be a big, big issue during this eclipse. And it's going to be on both sides, supporting women and going against women. So you're going to have both of those things going on. And it just depends on how things play out with this eclipse as to whether this is going to be beneficial or not. So it's up for grabs there with Uranus. It's very hard to predict with Uranus because Uranus by nature is the planet of unpredictability. So not predictable. So the whole world is going through this eclipse. Everybody's going to experience it in one way or the other. But there are certain parts of the world that are going to be impacted by this eclipse more than others. And I'm going to bring up one of my other, let me get this down and let me bring this up. So here is a map of the world, and this bell arc shows where the eclipse will be basically seen, which is its area of influence. The stuff that is impacted, that is really impacted the most, is on this center meridian. So I'm going to look at my copy and make it bigger so that I can really see what's going on there. And I'm going to try to read this teeny weeny print and tell you what cities are really going to be affected by the eclipse. Let me just take a little sip of my water here. Okay. So the first thing that I want you to notice, or that I want to tell you, is that the ascendant of this eclipse point, is happening in Cancer, even though it's an Aquarius eclipse. The ascendant of it is Cancer, which is good for us, which means that Jupiter in the first house is really strong. We have this is Scotland and the UK up over here, but we'll notice that the eclipse goes right through Paris and London. So both Paris and London are going to be in the news probably concerning some event with this eclipse. And eclipse action can happen a month, a week, a day before the eclipse, a couple days after, a week after. And then as planets move away from the eclipse, but they hit that degree of the eclipse, then things can also happen at that time. So it's very hard to say, yes, on the eclipse, all these things are going to happen. I'm not saying that because that probably won't happen. But you can kind of bet that anywhere where these red lines are on this map are going to hit cities that probably will have something that echoes back to the eclipse as the moment or the instigator of things that will happen to the people in those cities. So we also have Barcelona, Valencia, and moving down here, we'll have, I can't read this one, and I don't know what city this is, but it's in Africa here. And then we have, I read this before. I wish I had written this down. Ouagadougou is going to be a big one. That looks like a capital city of one of the countries in Africa. And then coming down here, then it goes out of Africa. So a lot of cities in, well, I guess I would call that southeastern Africa before it goes into the lower part of Africa. They could be affected, but London and Paris and Barcelona also, and Valencia. Those cities will all probably be affected pretty strongly. Now, if we come over here, we see that I think it is Ottawa up here. Yeah, Ottawa. It's kind of close to Montreal. I'm not too certain that it would be, or I'm sorry, not Montreal. Montpelier in Vermont is pretty close. Cleveland is pretty close, but Washington, D.C. is very close. New York and Philly are very close. Not so much Boston, but New York, and even New York a little ways away. But Washington, D.C. is very close to this sphere of influence. And then Charlotte, North Carolina, is right on the line. Jacksonville, Florida, right near the line. And then coming down here, it's going to go through Central America. And then we have some countries probably in, I want to say that's Ecuador. Yeah, because here's Cuenca, Guayaquil. Yeah, so there's some cities in Ecuador kind of far off of it, so not too certain. And then coming down this side, this is, I think, all in Russia. And I cannot read this really, really well. But some other things over here. Kathmandu, I remember that one. Bhopal, Kolkata in India. These are all going to be affected, and then it goes off into the ocean. So there will be some places around the globe that really get hit much stronger. Okay, so that's the places in the world where we know it's going to get hit. Now I'd like to bring up the United States. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm going to get rid of this one. I'm going to go to, that's the eclipse. I'm going to go here, this one. Okay. So now I'm going to share this. Whoops. I'm going to remove that one and I'm going to bring this one. There we go. Okay. So it's a little hard to see, but here it is. This is the eclipse. On the outside are the eclipse planets, and on the inside are the planets and the chart for the United States. And for the United States, we have the moon for the United States, which is down here. Here's the moon in Aquarius and Pallas Athena. And it is conjunct almost exactly the sun and moon of the eclipse. So do you think that the United States is going to have something happen with this eclipse? Yes, very definitely. Very, very definitely. Something is going to be going on. And this is in our third house, our house 4, communication, young children, ideas, things like AI and any kind of transactions, communications. I'm thinking things that had been affected by Doge. All of that, I think, is going to have be impacted bigly from this eclipse. Another place where we're going to have a big impact is the Jupiter of the eclipse is up here in Cancer. That's the current Jupiter, and it's coming very close to the sun of the United States. That's good. That's caring, love, nurturing, protection of the homeland, but protection of the leader too. So there's a big protective vibe right here with Jupiter very close to the sun. And also the ascendant of the actual eclipse is conjunct the United States Venus and Jupiter. That's also very, very big protection. So it's hard to interpret that. Does that mean protection of the current administration and what they're doing? Or is that protection of the people of the US? And I think because we have the moon and moon connection down here, the moon in any chart of a city or a town or a country represents the people of that country, city, or town. So I think that the people are very well protected with the sun and moon of the eclipse right on top of the moon. So I think, yeah, this protection will work well for us. I think that will be really, really good. And also, because they're so close to the very beginning of Cancer, and this is at the very end of Aquarius, it does make an out of sign trine here, which is a benevolent and helpful and harmonious energy. So I think that will really benefit the people in general. Let's see, what else do we have? The Jupiter of the USA, now let me find that, is here. And the Jupiter and Venus of the USA are going to square the Saturn. Where is it here? Here it is, the Saturn, Neptune, which are in Aries. So there is going to be a challenge there. The rules, the government is going to challenge women and children and those who are probably vulnerable in this eclipse. But remember that Saturn and Neptune together, they are boundaries and boundarylessness, no boundaries. So Neptune dissolves things. Isn't that interesting? Neptune dissolves, Saturn builds. So Neptune can dissolve what Saturn builds. Neptune can dissolve things. So that might be good for us. That might be really, really good for us. It might be time in this country for us to just reimagine the whole structure of any kind of government. Maybe it's not even called a government. Maybe it's a whole different entity that can help serve the people. I don't know. It's just an idea. All right. We also have the USA's midheaven, which is up here and is in Libra, actually in the 11th house. And let's talk about that for a second. So the midheaven in a country's chart is the legacy, the goal, what this country is really trying to achieve. And in the 11th house is a house for actually the people, groups, networks, humanity. And it's the sign of Libra, which is the sign of cooperation and relationship and harmony. So the midheaven, which is what we want to achieve, what we want to be, what we want our legacy to be, is in this very harmonious space for the people. So that's really good. Now, having said that, this midheaven, this MC in Libra in the 11th house, is directly opposite this Saturn Neptune conjunction down here that is currently traveling through the sky. So this Saturn Neptune conjunction, which can be very dangerous at times in many countries, if this hits a sensitive degree, this sparks wars and violence in the country. It does in our country. And so having this in direct opposition to our midheaven is a moment and an opportunity for us to be challenged by that energy. So are we changing what we stand for? Are we trying to change the country in that way? Or are we breaking down the boundaries and rules and barriers and changing it in that way? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But that's what those energies call forth. Let's see. And then we have the United States sun, which of course is in Cancer because we're July babies, is trining the Pisces planets of Mercury and Venus in the eclipse. So we have, where'd that go? There we go. Okay, so we have the sun up here in Cancer. And if you look down here, we have Mercury and what did I just say? And Venus. Now, Venus is a little wide, but it's not too wide. It's still within orb. And we have Mercury. Now, it's important that we have Mercury there because the sun in our country's chart represents the leader. And the leader should be protecting us. We want the leader to protect us. And right now, Jupiter in Cancer is bringing more of that protection energy to the country than normally would be there. So we are being protected by our own country for the things that are happening to the people. Trining this Mercury and Venus in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces and Venus in Pisces, these are more spiritual, more open-minded, more high idealistic ideas about what we want our country to be. And those planets in Pisces are falling in the house for home, home, home and country. So with the sun up here in which is the leader in the house for things that are hidden and secret. Very often our leaders have to do things in secret, but with Jupiter protecting it and giving this very nice benevolent energy to Venus and Mercury, we could come up with ideas that are even better for protecting our country. And this eclipse could be the trigger for really bringing it to light, maybe it's already started, or beginning that process. So I'm very optimistic about what's going on with this eclipse. And finally, I want to mention that the moon of our country is square Uranus in Taurus. And I mentioned this before because the square of Uranus is squaring, whoops, is that the right Uranus? No, it's this. Yes, it's this Uranus. The Uranus of the eclipse is squaring the sun of the eclipse. And since the sun is close to the moon in the natal chart of the country, we have the same square. So this square of moon in Aquarius from both the United States chart and the eclipse chart is squaring Uranus in Taurus, the current Uranus, where it is moving to at the end of Taurus. So what does this mean? Well, Uranus in the eclipse chart is falling in the house in the United States chart for work and everyday life. So everyday life is being disrupted at a very grassroots level. Taurus, very grassroots, very earth, very down to the earth. Things that we do every day are being disrupted by what's going on in our country. It is squaring the ideas that we usually live with. And also the third house is traditionally a mercurial house, and it represents everyday transactions in addition to the sixth house representing everyday transactions. So the everyday things that we're trying to do that mean so much to us because the moon is there. So it's very emotional that we are very attached to this. We feel that it's our survival to do these things every day or whatever we do every day. And yet it's being threatened, being challenged by other forces. So in this eclipse, that's going to bring all of these things to a head. It's going to bring everything out so that it's really, nobody's just saying, oh, that's just an odd occurrence, or that's just something strange that happened one day. No, people are acknowledging, or they will be acknowledging, I think, from here on out, things are really not right. They're not normal. Our daily life is so disrupted, and this must change. And I think the eclipse is coming along and going to help us to change those things. So with that very long explanation, thank you for listening to all of that. Let's look at some of the things that we have in the comments. So let's see. February 17th is also Mardi Gras Day. How appropriate. How appropriate. Okay. So let's see here what we have. Oh, thanks, Sherry. Let's see. Okay. Great. I'm just looking at all of your comments to see if there's any question. What does the crown number 1 mean? I don't know. Where do you see crown number 1? I don't know what that means. Let's see. Oh, okay. That's not something astrology. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and you know, we do need a complete reset, but after this debacle is done, really quality universal healthcare, free education, I think that as we go through these processes, I think that things will change. There will be some changes that happen suddenly and dramatically, but I think the real changes to our system, meaning getting equality, real equality, universal health care, free education, I think those things are part of a process. And I think people have just had it. I think that the normal American population is just like, yeah, why don't we have this stuff? It's obvious that the rest of the world in developed countries has this. We're a rich country. We should have this. We all shouldn't be struggling. I mean, it is almost like it's almost like the feudal system the way we live. You know, we're really beholden. If you don't have good credit, you can't get a great credit rating, or you can't get a good APR. You have to pay higher rates for your car loan, for your mortgage, et cetera. It's like, wait a minute, that why is it that way? That's just upside down. Like, you should be able to get a better rate, and then you should, be able to get the things you need, like healthcare and education and have a nice job. And it used to be that people in families, if there were two people raising a family, only one person had to go out and work, and that was enough. And you could have a car and a nice house and a yard and raise your kids, and they could go to college. And well, I don't know back then when so many people went to college, but you could if you wanted to. So, yeah, I think it's a process that'll happen, and I don't think it'll happen overnight, but I think it will. Okay, will Holman move to another state or city? That's beyond the scope of my astrology right now. I don't have his chart. I wish I did. When I get it, I'll try to look into that. I really don't know. Um, okay, what else do we have here? Let's see. Yeah, I think that's true. Well, I heard, before I left work on Tuesday, my daughter said, "Oh, ice is going to be in one of the cities, one of the towns just like one over from us." And I was like, "Oh, what does that mean? What are we supposed to how are we supposed to handle that?" I didn't hear anything else about it, but I did hear a short interview of our new governor, and she was like, "No, that's not happening. I have already set up everything so that they will. I've done everything I can do to prevent them from coming here, and I've instructed the law enforcement not to participate with them, but to resist them." And she's already putting things in place to make sure that bad things don't happen. So I'm very, very excited about that. I'm very happy about that. Let's see. Absolutely. Amen. Okay. Okay. So we don't really have any questions, but that's fine. If you want to put some in the chat now, that would be great. And yeah, and if you have any questions about the eclipse, I can look at those too. Okay. Well, that's pretty much what I wanted to present about the eclipse, guys. Um, I didn't have anything really detailed. I am having a members meeting on Sunday, and so for my members or anybody that wants to become a member, if you have questions about the eclipse, certainly put it on the post for the membership meeting, and I'll look at that and see if I can answer those questions. Um, I'm really focusing on the eclipse right now because it's um it's it's an interesting point in time, and it is sort of a gateway to what's going to be happening for all of us for the next couple of years. It's just really, really, I think, impactful. It's going to be really, really important. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming and watching, and thank you for listening. I really appreciate you all being here, and I hope I'll see a lot of you on Sunday. That would be great. And I don't know. That's all I have. Okay. All right. So, oh no, I do have a few other things I wanted to point out. Um, I lied. I do have something that I want to look at. So, now, for those of you that have fixed signs in the late degrees of your fixed signs, that's Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. If you have anything like 25 degrees and later, or 1 or 2 degrees of the signs after those, this is going to really hit you. So um, you're going to want to not lay low, but realize that the energy of this eclipse is very big. It's very forceful. It's very fast moving. It's going to push you into action. So during the period from like today for the next 2 weeks, you're going to want to not overbook yourself. Don't overschedule yourself. Allow yourself some wiggle room, some rest room in your schedule, so that you don't get too tired and overwhelmed emotionally. That's really important, especially if the eclipse is really hitting you right between the eyes on in your chart. And realize that this is a reset point for people who are sensitive to this. The Aquarius Leo axis is coming in, and for the next 2 years, it's really going to be dominating what's going on in your life. So you're going to want to look in your chart to see, where does a Leo and Aquarius fall in my chart, and where does Virgo and Pisces fall in my chart, because those things in your life are also going to be important as they get wrapped up and you move on. You need to stay balanced, and you want to connect to your spiritual community, but you also need time for yourself. You want to balance yourself, balance your time between what you need as a spiritual person, and what you need in terms of your community. You really want to think about that. Aquarius has to do with systems and structures. So there may be things that you don't like about certain authorities, you don't like about certain ideologies, or you may feel that many systems are outdated. That's fine, but be mindful about how you approach getting them changed. This is the time to get those things changed. But you don't get them changed by walking in with a baseball bat and just busting up all the computers. That's not going to change things. That's going to get you arrested. So you want to be careful with that, mindful of that. And this is the time where you will have the energy swirling around in the zeitgeist, giving you great ideas for how to disrupt and get things to change in a positive direction. Innovation and rebellion, two key words for Aquarius. There is tons of energy going towards innovation and rebellion. So if you can get a great idea off the ground, this is the time. This is the time to plant those seeds and start making those things happen. If you're an Aquarius native, you may be resolving issues having to do with your community, with technology, with freedom, and the way that you look at education and how things go. For other people who are not Aquarians, this eclipse may trigger things having to do with your own identity or career, even social networks, but things having to do with the 11th house and friends. The 11th house has to do with your hopes, dreams, and wishes, but it's also the groups that you're a part of and what you do when you're done with your major career in your life. What do you do with the money that you made? What do you do with the knowledge and experience that you have? Do you travel the world, or do you go out and, I don't know, mentor people? I don't know, different things. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying it's a different way to use your past experience. Um, okay, we talked about that. Just stay open to the change. This is going to be a very transformative period, a very transformative time. And if you want more information about the eclipse as it relates to you personally, you can go on my website, you can book a reading, and I have readings that are not just the full natal reading or the full future forecast reading, which are the more expensive ones. I have two readings that I offer. One is the new moon reading and the full moon reading. And all I look at is that moon, that lunation, and juxtapose it to your chart and tell you how that's really going to impact you. And I could do that for the eclipse for you too. So that's a more affordable option for people, and it'll give you a lot of information. And then you'll also get introduced to the way that I do charts, the way that I read astrology, and you may like it and you may want to do more, or you may hate it. I don't know. It's up to you. Um, and of course, at my website, I also offer card readings and clairvoyance and things like that. So there's a lot of possibilities there. But if you just want to look at the new moon or full moon coming up, and the new moon being the solar eclipse, go to my website and book one of those readings. I'd love to meet you face to face and do that reading for you. Okay, so now that's all that I have for now. So now I'm going to sign off, and I look forward to seeing all of you on Sunday. If you would honor me with your presence for the members meeting. And other than that, I'm just going to say, stay cool, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.